You know what? It's been a while since I've seen a giant, bronze, shirtless man. Ah, there we go. That's the stuff.
Emily, I must speak to you.
What's the matter, Louis?
I have news about your sister.
What have you found out?
Look, I've started piecing together the events leading up to my mother's disappearance and your sister's. Did my mother know about your secret?
Yes, even though I belong to the English chapter, her rank in the Order gives her access to a good deal of personal information.
It must have been Emma I saw in my vision.
I was given to understand that my mother and your sister bonded during their stay.
Yeah, your dead sister is very interesting. But let's talk about my treasure hunt.
I've got a question that might seem a little bit strange.
I'm listening.
If I said go beyond the nightmare, would that ring any bells?
No, means nothing to me. Do you mean literally or figuratively speaking?
I really like that you have to spend points to know what a metaphor is. And I really, really like that it's wrong. We are literally going beyond the nightmare.
It might be a place, I don't know where, but it's a lead.
You ought to ask His Eminence. He knows the house and its estate very well, being a frequent visitor here.
Thanks for the advice.
Should I speak to her about my vision? If what I saw is true, she might want to take revenge.
Now, normally it's kind of rude to tell people about your dreams because no one cares, but I think this situation might be an exception to that rule.
Emily, there's something else.
Go on then.
It's about your sister. I don't know what happened exactly, but it's possible that my mother had a go at her.
I know, Louis. I found out that same evening. Well, thanks for not trying to hide it.
What? Why didn't you tell me?
I didn't know if I could trust you. Now I know I can. It seems that your mother tricked Emma. She apparently asked her to hide an important book so that even she wouldn't know where it was. And then she shot her like a dog to make sure no one would ever find it again.
Shooting like a dog is actually a sneaky reference to the fact that Hillsborough is the great-great-great-grandmother of Mike Huckabee.
How did you find out?
Sir Gregory told me on my arrival.
I'm sincerely sorry, Emily.
Thank you, Louis. But you do realize your mother will have to accept the consequences of her acts.
There must be an explanation, Emily.
That's what we shall see. Come, Louis. They're waiting for us.
You will pay dearly, Peru. I'm sure you were involved somewhere along the line.
That's right. Pretend you don't know. One piece of advice. Don't travel through France on your way back, or it'll cost you dearly.
Calm now, my friends. Let's calm down. Everyone seems to be a little unnecessarily heated. Don't forget where you are, please.
What's going on here exactly?
Sir Gregory called us together to introduce the last guest.
But hardly had we arrived when he set upon Monsieur Peru.
Let's get ready to meet the MVP, Manuel Godoy.
And who is this charming character?
Manuel Godoy, the Duke of La Alcudia.
He's the head of the Spanish government, Monsieur de Richet. He's the one who, in practice, controls Spain.
He is 25, he's the Prime Minister, and he's accomplished nothing in his whole life.
How could you dare do such a thing? Dios mío, you are all out of your minds!
Really, Duke Manuel? What made you kick up such a fuss?
What? Have you not heard? Well, let me inform you that yesterday morning at 10:22 a.m. precisely, in the middle of the Place de la Révolution in Paris, by decree of the National Convention which Monsieur Peru works for, King Louis was guillotined. What?
Oh, no.
The King of France is dead, gentlemen. Our monarchies are in danger. I have said it before. How dare they?
Oh, dear.
Oh, as if it...
Gracious.
Is it Lord Mortimer?
Friends,
Friends, let us calm down.
Don't pretend to be surprised. He got a fair trial.
Ridiculous! Bastard! He was sentenced to death by 361 votes to 360. You beheaded a king for 1 vote! Is that your democracy?
Yeah, as an American, I believe an electoral college should decide who lives and who dies.
What an obnoxious act! Until anything was possible. This political coup will have grave consequences.
France is lost.
Gentlemen, please. Let us take a step back a moment.
In the name of holiness. He was the highest representative of God in France, Emily.
This whole revolution thing is becoming sadly pertinent.
Gentlemen, Duchess, we're all among people of reputable company here. We should be able to manage the conflicts of our nations in a respectful and orderly manner.
I fully agree with you, sir.
But
That's enough, sir.
with whom do I have the pleasure of speaking?
Louis de Richet.
Are you related to Sarah de Richet?
Sarah is his mother, Duke. Gentlemen, this news affects us all, but I must ask you to remain calm. It's not the first time history has taken us by surprise. Let's ensure that our respective countries are allowed to respond appropriately to this news.
Oh, rest assured. The response will not fall short, my friend.
Good for you. Well, Your Grace, here I was preparing to introduce you, as is proper, and you've beaten me to it. I'm delighted that we are all together at last. Our meeting will therefore be able to kick off shortly. I have just a few more little preparations to take care of before you all find out the reason for your presence here. In the meantime, I shall leave you to get to know one another. When you hear the bell, please proceed to the conclave room on my left, behind that door. I'll see you later.
Half the characters decide they don't want to start the meeting. They'd rather silently stand in the corner for 10 minutes. I don't get it, but I do respect it. Also, I lost my audio for this part, so I'm using an AI to mimic the voice of the narrator from the Stanley Parable. Could you tell?
Could you spare a moment, please, sir?
I'm glad you asked. I want to talk to you too. Of course.
I can't say no to you.
I heard about your mother's disappearance.
He looks concerned. I don't know why, but I doubt it's from sympathy alone. Well, let's see what he wants from me.
Any news of her? Have you found her, maybe?
You know, I've been here for a couple of days and I haven't actually started looking yet. Yeah, just a lot of prep time.
To hear you speak, you seem to know my mother well.
Not really. We met for the first time on this very spot some weeks back. We had a very pleasant discussion. She's an exceptionally learned lady with a good head for business. No need for me to tell you that.
I agree.
Did she tell you about our arrangement?
Well, that sounds sinister, but no, she didn't.
Absolutely, but I was hoping you could tell me more about it.
Well, she was planning to sell me a very old book. I will make no secret of the fact that I am passionate about the subject, and when Sarah spoke to me about it, her account literally had me enthralled. I can think of nothing else since. You might have come across some old books in her belongings, perhaps?
Look at Napoleon there, pretending he's not eavesdropping on us. Your solo game of chess isn't that interesting.
Indeed. My mother is never without her favorite book.
Oh, a stroke of luck?
I didn't think her original edition of Bougainville would be so captivating to you.
No, indeed. The one I'm interested in is a very old book, with each chapter under lock and key. It has nothing to do with de Bougainville's book.
Oh, right. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that.
Well, too bad.
You seem very upset. Is it so important to you, this book?
Well, it's the search of a lifetime. What can I say? Every time I move closer to it, it seems to slip away at the last minute. I was very surprised to learn that your mother had it in her possession. I thought it was with a certain von Borchet in Paris. Do you know him?
Oh yeah, I might have killed him? I'm not sure. I hit him with a big chair.
Indeed. My mother and I had a brush with this individual just a few months ago.
What about?
About an object stolen from the Order a few years ago, which my mother wanted to recover.
This situation comes as a great surprise to me.
I got him now. I hope I've been able to satisfy your curiosity, Mr. von Wollner, and that you succeed in finding what you're looking for.
Oh, and so do I.
And now, what if you told me who you really are working for, instead of keeping up this pretense?
I beg your pardon?
We both know what you're looking for, von Wollner. You're the one who von Borchet was planning to sell it to.
For centuries, all those who have come into contact with the Al-Azif have bitterly regretted it, Monsieur de Richet. You are playing a dangerous game. Please know that I am working for someone who does not appreciate anyone poking around in his business.
Yes.
It's pretty funny that this is a story about the missing Necronomicon, but we just keep getting sidetracked from that.
It's Sir Gregory.
Correct. You ought to know then, he is not a man who likes to be duped. You are walking on thin ice, sir.
Alright, you can stop pretending you weren't listening.
Monsieur Bonaparte, may I speak with you a moment?
May we?
Did you hear about my cool new friend, Godoy?
What do you think of Duke Godoy?
Well, I'd rather not express any opinion of him.
Why's that?
His reputation is enough for me.
You could call Godoy Napoleon's rival, in the same way that I'm LeBron James's rival. Napoleon would just wipe the floor with him for like a decade.
I'm sure that a soldier such as yourself is not interested in vulgar rumors.
Quite right. If only this cursed gossip didn't come to stain the uniform he has the audacity to wear.
Don't you find him worthy?
But how could he be, monsieur? He never sets foot on the battlefield, too occupied with charming the queen. Have you any idea of the number of titles that coward has won in just a few years?
No, not really.
10! And that Don Juan spends the best part of his time under the queen's skirts. The bugger must have some hidden talent, given all of the gifts she gives him.
I understand your point of view. Does expression "go beyond the nightmare" mean anything to you at all?
Well, metaphorically, yes. It sums up the career of a soldier quite well. I doubt that is what you want to hear, though.
Indeed. That's surely not what I'm looking for.
Well, monsieur, if you are looking for a phrase book, Lord Mortimer must surely have one, given the number of books he has. You ought to check in the library of the tower. You never know.
Would you have any more information about the conference Lord Mortimer spoke of?
Nothing at all. Mortimer is very committed to secrecy when it comes to his conferences. But given the presence of Monsieur Peru and ourselves, I think it must concern France to some extent. Otherwise, I doubt he would have invited 3 Frenchmen to his table, huh?
Well, I'll be leaving you now. Shall we meet up again later?
Wait, monsieur. Any news of your mother?
Unfortunately not, no.
I hope to speak with her about my deal before I leave. Let me know if you find her. À plus tard, monsieur.
Tell me about your nightmares, old man.
Go beyond the nightmare. Does this line remind you of anything in particular?
You've caught me unaware here, Louis. Let me think about it a second. No, nothing comes to mind. Sorry, Louis, but I am unable to help you.
Mr. President, what do you think about your counterpart, Duke Manuel?
I'm very surprised he was able to accept Lord Mortimer's invitation, given the political situation in Spain.
Yeah, politics is very interesting. But I heard he eats mad pussy. What do you think?
What do you mean?
The situation is ready to explode with France over Catalonia.
Well, the Duke must have a darn good reason to be absent and come here, mustn't he?
When Lord Mortimer invites you, Louis, you come. It's always in your best interest.
I wouldn't say that personally, but...
So this conference, it's not an eyes wide shut thing, is it? I mean, if it is, I'm down. I mean, Godoy is here, but still.
Mr. President, can you tell me a little more about the coming conference?
Of course, Louis. That's why we're here. Lord Mortimer or Sir Gregory regularly organize meetings like this to put forward major projects.
What do you mean by major projects?
I'd prefer to let Lord Mortimer explain that to you, Louis. Let's say he brings together influential people in order to consider possible actions to undertake to guarantee the future of nations.
Do you know the theme of the conference?
Not in the slightest. None of the guests know the theme before arriving. But you'll see, everything will turn out fine. Don't worry.
Well, thank you for your time.
Don't mention it, my young friend. Regarding your question on the nightmare, don't hesitate to question the others about it. Maybe one of them knows more than I do.
That's a good idea. Thank you once again. I'll see you in a little bit.
Ah, Louis.
Hey.
Just the man. Good Lord. How did the king come to be executed? I would think that the order would have intervened.
Okay, we can actually use Devil's Foreign here to see which choice is the correct one.
Your Eminence, I haven't been following the case. I'm sure that the Order did everything in its power. Unfortunately, you know the situation in Paris, and, well, it's chaotic at best. Anything can happen in those revolutionary tribunals.
The king is the official representative of God on earth, my son.
Your Eminence, France had their state. The king was just another citizen to them. The mayors looked down upon them and attempted to escape. What did he expect?
France has lost all reason, Louis.
I invite you to speak about it with my mother as soon as she reappears.
Is there any news of her?
I hope it won't be long before I find her, Your Eminence.
Now you wanted to speak to me.
So I got distracted by the giant pig head.
If I say the nightmare to you, does it make you think of anything?
If I did this, would it mean anything to you?
Your question is strange, my son. Difficult to say. Could you at least tell me a little more about the context?
Oh, because he's vulnerable to manipulation, I gain a point, and because I have so many manipulation points, I don't have to spend any effort here, so net gain.
Think of a place and tell me the first thing that comes into your mind when I say the nightmare.
Let me think. I'd say Lord Mortimer's favorite painting on the wall behind his desk. You know, that painting caused quite a stir when it was exhibited. It is titled The Nightmare, and it shows a woman lying down with a creature sitting on her, and in the background, a horse. I don't know if it will be of any help, but I can't think of anything else.
You never know. Thank you for that, though, Your Eminence. I gotta go and see it just in case, though. I'm sure a man like you is in the circle of trust. Would you know what the conference that Lord Mortimer mentioned is going to be about?
Not really, my son. Well, be it Lord Mortimer or Sir Gregory, we are never informed about the theme of the conference before it begins.
I was wondering what to think of that Manuel Godoy.
He is reputed to be a very ambitious character, at every level. But his faith is unwavering. He is a staunch defender of the church. You can believe me.
Do you think it's true that Godoy had his own ribs removed so he could his own
As to his faith, I have no doubt. However, his ambition seems to surpass his morality. And I hope that it will not sully the crown.
You can say that again. The blue eyes of the latest Infanta, Maria Isabel, have left everyone wondering.
Let's dish.
Rumors always accompany men of power, Your Eminence.
Naturally. But the number of awards and titles granted by the Queen during these past 4 years leaves little doubt.
Cardinal, before you slut-shame the Prime Minister, ask yourself, what would Jesus do?
So, Godoy really is this out-and-out rascal who uses his charm on the Queen.
Thank you for everything, Your Eminence. I shan't take up any more of your time.
You are welcome, my son. I will be seeing you, Louis.
What do you want, Louis?
What do you think of our last guest?
Well, I never thought I would get the chance to meet that Hispanic Casanova in the flesh. His reputation is well known. The gentleman collects lovers, including, would you believe it, the Queen of Spain.
Yeah, I heard Godoy and the Queen. Just like in the 1997 hit film Crash.
The Queen of Spain likes to indiscreetly say, the King, Godoy, and myself make up the Holy Trinity. The people have appropriately renamed them the Goat, the Ruffian, and the Whore.
I didn't see you being a mudslinger in your idle hours, I must say.
Emily, what can you tell me about the coming conference?
Sir Gregory and Lord Mortimer organize this kind of high society meeting every so often in order to consider the world situation.
But to what purpose?
Well, by bringing together the most influential people from the dominant nations of the modern world, they allow the mighty to discuss matters with calm clarity. There are precedents of armistices being signed at the end of these talks, you know. Talking while holding a glass of brandy makes things easier. You'll see. You're leaving me?
Unfortunately, I have things to do. Thank you again, madam.
So, what did my mother mean by going beyond the nightmare?
I wonder if going behind the nightmare is what she meant when she said go behind the nightmare. Anyway, let's check out this moon door. What do you think he uses that moon door for? Does he push servants down there when they don't bring him chocolate-coated strawberries fast enough? Throw his laundry down there because, you know, he's not going to wash it. He can buy new clothes.
Dante's Purgatory. Why does your mind presume to flight when you're still like the imperfect grub, the worm before it's attained its final form? Charming. The Book of the Mortimer family.
I like that there is a book of his family, but they do not elaborate on what that means. You know, the family book. So that is a statue of Longinus holding the Spear of Destiny. So, what could the password be?
Open this chest.
I'll give you a hint. It's one of the two things. It's one of the two things that Mortimer talks about, and it's not the Crusades. I guess he does talk about other things, like artillery spears. That's his third interest. I'm going to explore his office a little bit, and then I will do a walkthrough of how to go beyond the nightmare. Stick around after that, though, because I'm gonna bully a bird.
it's me again. Just pointing out that this is another Godoy painting that's being created anachronistically by Lord Mortimer. He does seem to have an affinity for very large men.
The Coup de Lance by Paul Rubens.
Does Mortimer have Rubens on speed dial? Because there's so much Rubens.
A family ancestor, apparently.
You have to go beyond the secret passage behind the nightmare painting in Mortimer's office. I think this puzzle is really interesting because it's an example of both really good and really bad puzzle design at the same time. You start the puzzle by exploring Mortimer's office, obviously, and discovering a switch underneath his desk which raises up the painting to reveal a comically large combination lock. You can just enter random codes if you want. 8008. If you turn that upside down, it looks like ooh. Anyway, we have to actually inspect the office if we want to get any clues on how to complete the puzzle. The most obvious clue is a letter on his desk to a gallery owner. In it, Lord Mortimer explains that he really prefers to use the Masonic calendar, not the Gregorian one. And isn't that just one of those precious things you can get away with if you're incredibly rich? Anyway, the Masonic calendar is very similar to ours, except for two changes. First, the starting year is 4,000 years earlier than our calendar. So 2021 would be 6021. You can add 4,000 years and pretty much get to the same point. The reason for this is that God created the universe 6,000 years ago, which we all know and believe. If you disagree, unsubscribe. This is a Tradcast Let's Play. Second, the calendar starts in March, not January. This is because the universe gives off a Pisces vibe, I suppose. So that note is interesting, but doesn't give us any clues. The next thing you need to examine is all the paintings on the wall. Besides the nightmare, there's a bunch of them and they're all dated. Except for this one, the Surrender of Acre. If you remember earlier, Mortimer singled out this painting and the Siege of Acre as being a important event in history. So, can use metatextual clues to know it's going to be significant here. We have a missing 4-digit code and a missing 4-digit year. I shouldn't even have to say this, it's pretty self-explanatory. The combination is going to be the year of the Surrender of Acre. You can Google that if you're a loser, but the in-game solution is to use a history book on Mortimer's bookcase. The book recounts all sorts of events from the First, Second, and Third Crusades, but the Third Crusade is the one with the Siege of Acre. And it says the Siege of Acre ended in surrender in the 12th month of 5190. So that might be our answer, right? If you type 5190 into the door, nothing happens. Puzzle isn't going to be that easy, but that's just the Masonic year. So let's try the Gregorian year, which would be 4,000 years earlier, so 1190. And nope, that doesn't work either, because here's the trick. The Masonic calendar starts in March. That means the 12th month would be February, not December. So for 3 months out of the year, it isn't actually 4,000 years different, it's 399 years different. So the year of the surrender would actually be 1191, 1191. We can enter that, and it works. I like that puzzle. You have to go through trial and error every time you make a mistake. You have to think about why that's a mistake, and that leads you to the correct answer. I think that's a pretty good design for a puzzle. Oh, my pal Voidburger pointed out that this is a reference to Twin Peaks. There is a bird in there that talks, also named Waldo. I only saw the first 5 episodes, 6 episodes, somewhere in there, of Twin Peaks, the first season. So take this with a grain of salt. I can't talk about the series too much. But that's okay because no one can talk about the series. They don't talk about Twin Peaks, they talk about David Lynch. And, like, auteur theory is prickly enough. It's just that, like, I don't know if I've heard people discuss the series without just obsessing on the auteur David Lynch. They're not talking about what's on the screen. I don't know if I've heard people talk about the cinematography and the acting. Or they do, but then they bring it back around to theme, and then bring theme back around to David Lynch. It's missing the forest for the trees in reverse. And like, I don't know, the big picture stuff isn't bad, don't think I'm saying that. It's just that, to me, the interesting part is how what is on the screen enforces theme, and just talking about theme by itself is a little too hoity-toity. It's almost like the show is a vessel for people to talk about surrealism and weirdness and David Lynch, and it's kind of regardless of what is actually in the show. It feels like the show could be a montage of weird scenes, and it would still fulfill the need for people to have something to talk about David Lynch with. And I'm not even criticizing the show. I haven't seen very much of it. I thought it was okay. And I could be Bobo the Fool right now, but these are my feelings on the show, and I guess more about the conversation around the show. But there's a video game going on.
Well, Waldo, is your master good?
So we can decide if we want to feed Waldo
Let's take a closer
chocolate, but I'm pretty sure birds are a type of dog and chocolate is poison to them. So let's not do that.
These chocolates are probably a protocol gift. Everybody in Europe loves them nowadays. Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, has her own personal chocolate maker at Versailles. They say it's her guilty little morning ritual before getting dressed. A cup with 1 sugar and some vanilla, if I remember rightly. I would be surprised if Mortimer has them delivered straight from South America.
We have some delicious cherries that are the size of his head.
Might come in handy.
Hey Waldo, did I ever tell you about the time my friend Godoy sucked 12 dicks in a row?
A mynah bird.
Hey Waldo, did I tell you about the time my friend Godoy
I don't really know
sucked
what I was
50
expecting.
dicks in a row?
Sarah de Richet? Waldo, you know Sarah? What? Repeat that, Waldo. Sarah? What about Sarah? Good God, what's been happening here?
I've been joking a lot about his sexual conquest, but rumors like this come up with every ruler, from Caligula to Catherine the Great to Donald Trump. Sex rumors happen. I think they're more likely with Godoy, but I still think they're highly exaggerated. I mean, it is entirely possible he was just good friends with the royal family. I mean, friends do exist. But he was probably sucking and fucking.